Hey guys. So a woman by the name of Jill Waldbieser wrote an article for Women's Health called The Scary Mental Risks of Going Meatless. You may have seen it. It's been making the rounds and it's pretty dumb. So I thought I'd go through the article point by point and point out how dumb it is. More and more women are vegging out of their minds. New research suggests that along with shedding pounds, slashing cancer risk, and boosting life expectancy, vegetarianism could come with lesser-known side effects. Panic attacks, OCD, depression. Women's Health investigates the puzzling blow of going meatless and how to stay plant-based without going mental. Puzzling blow of going meatless? Implying that giving up meat will put your mental health at risk? No surprise that the actual evidence is not so clear-cut, according to the article itself. Yellow journalism, right from the start. Her symptoms were sudden and severe. Drew Ramsey's 35-year-old patient had always been fit and active, but her energy had flatlined. When she did manage to drag herself to the gym, it didn't help. She felt anxious and was often on the verge of tears for no reason, even when she was with friends. Worst of all were her panic attacks, a rare occurrence in the past but now so common that she was afraid of losing her job because she had trouble getting out of bed, and she'd become terrified of taking the New York City subway. Sensationalism followed by an anecdote. Awesome. Ramsey, a Columbia University professor and psychiatrist with 14 years of experience, wanted to put her on medication. His patient demurred. She was so conscious of what she put in her body, she'd even given up meat a year ago, having heard about all the health benefits of vegetarianism. So Ramsey prescribed something else, grass-fed steak. Because whether or not beef is grass-fed really makes a difference in terms of nutrition, right? As I spoke about in this video, grass-fed beef does have a bit more omega-3s as well as conjugated linoleic acid, CLA, which supposedly fights fat and cancer, but that's it. It still isn't a good source of omega-3s. Walnuts, chia seeds, flax seeds, hemp seeds, canola oil are all way better sources in terms of ALA per calorie that they offer, as well as the other things they offer like fiber and the things they don't, like cholesterol. It isn't a good source of CLA either. Not that the evidence actually supports the fat loss and anti-cancer claims that paleo nuts love to attribute to it. Again, check out that video that I just linked. But this guy is a psychiatrist, not a registered dietitian. It's really no surprise that he doesn't know shit about nutrition. It may sound like an episode of House, but Ramsey had a hunch. He'd seen a dramatic link between mood and food before. He even researched it for his forthcoming book, Eat Complete. Because I know when I'm looking for advice on nutrition, I go to a psychiatrist. And guessed that his patient's well-intentioned meat-free diet was the very thing causing her mental deterioration. Sure enough, 6 weeks after adding animal protein back onto her plate, her energy rebounded and her panic attacks dropped by 75%. Again, anecdote. An anecdote that leaves a very important question unanswered. What was this patient eating? We know what she wasn't eating. We know she wasn't eating meat, but what exactly was she eating? It's the same question we should be asking orthorexic ex-vegans like Jordan Younger. What were they eating? We know it wasn't meat, eggs, or dairy, but that tells us nothing about what their diet was actually made of, how much food they were actually eating, and what plant foods they were actually eating. Were they juicing constantly and under-eating like Jordan Younger was? Were they restricting healthy foods like soy and wheat because were they supplementing for B12? Were they getting enough iron, zinc, calcium, lysine, vitamin A? The fact that someone is vegetarian or vegan tells us nothing about the state of their diet. And thanks in part to the high-carb, low-fat community and the pseudo-scientific dietary claims that they make, it's easy to be misled and inadvertently eat an unhealthy and inadequate vegan diet that's just full of low-nutrient sugars and starches. And then there are the standard American junk food vegan and vegetarian diets that are basically just what most Americans eat, minus the meat and other animal products. These are unlikely to be adequate either. Her case is far from unique. I hear from vegetarians every day. They have this terrible depression and anxiety, and they don't understand why. Because the author of The Vegetarian Myth is a totally reasonable source for a supposedly unbiased article on the supposed risks of giving up meat. Seriously, if you are going to quote well-known anti-veg Lear Keith, at least also quote someone who, doesn't parrot all of their nutrition guidelines from the Weston A. Price Foundation? Practically every day, it seems, a new study emerges showing that vegetarian diets are the key to everything from shedding pounds to beating cancer. So it was startling last year when Australian researchers revealed that vegetarians reported being less optimistic about the future than meat eaters. What's more, they were 18% more likely to report depression and 28% more likely to suffer panic attacks and anxiety. A separate German study backs this up, finding that vegetarians were 15% more prone to depressive conditions and twice as likely to suffer anxiety disorders. Even the pros find the stats confounding in a chicken or egg way. We don't know if a vegetarian diet causes depression and anxiety, or if people who are predisposed to those mental conditions gravitate toward vegetarianism. So poor mental health isn't a puzzling blow of going meatless? It might just be that people prone to disorders like OCD and depression are also more likely to give up meat? This really is the crux of the whole issue. These two studies, they just show an association between vegetarianism and certain mental health disorders. As the researchers from the German study note, because the start of a vegetarian diet, on average, follows the onset of disorder, the experience of a mental disorder may increase the probability of choosing a vegetarian diet. That is to say, the mental disorder causes the vegetarian diet. Individuals with a history of a mental disorder may exhibit more perceived health-oriented behavior in order to positively influence the course of their disease. Moreover, the experience of a mental disorder may sensitize individuals to the suffering of other living beings, including animals. In addition, elevated levels of health-related anxiety may lead individuals with mental disorders to choose a vegetarian diet as a form of safety or self-protective behavior, because a meat-free diet is perceived as more healthy. It's also important to note that not all studies looking at vegetarians and mental health have found this correlation. This study on Seventh Day Adventists found that despite significantly lower reported EPA and DHA intakes, the vegetarians in our survey reported significantly less negative emotion than the omnivores as measured by both mood scales. This study found that a vegan diet did not negatively affect mood, and that actually the vegans in the group reported having less stress and anxiety than the omnivores. I'm not cherry-picking here, trying to find the studies that support my viewpoint, but merely pointing out that the evidence is not nearly as clear-cut as the author would like it to be. The truth is that some studies have found a correlation between vegetarianism and certain mental health disorders, and we don't know why that is. And that just doesn't make for a good headline. But the scary mental health risks of going meatless, now that's catchy. And even if some vegetarians are struggling with their mental health or having mental health issues because of their diet, does this really mean that going back to eating meat is the answer? Spoiler alert. No. Quick, name some brain foods. Well, there's avocado, olive oil, nuts. Red meat? Not so much. Yet anthropological evidence shows that, long before we could choose to subsist on cashew cheese and tofu, animal flesh provided the energy-dense calories necessary to fuel evolving cerebellums. Without meat, we'd never have matured beyond the mental capacity of herbivores like gorillas. This meat made us smarter myth is just that, a myth, perpetuated by people who want it to be true. The truth is, as it usually is, much less sensational. For the expensive tissue hypothesis, meat itself wasn't really the point. A close reading shows that the ETH was fundamentally about total calories, not specific calorie sources. So even according to the expensive tissue hypothesis that got this all started, it's calories that made us smarter, not meat. The whole idea was just misreported. Not to mention that the hypothesis turned out to be empirically wrong anyway. Check out the Humane Hominids post on this topic for more info, link in the description. Today, stronger brains are still powered by beef, or at least by many of the nutrients commonly found in animal proteins. Many of the nutrients found in animal proteins. In other words, it's the nutrients that are important, not the meat itself. At the top of the list are B vitamins, which your noggin needs to pump out neurotransmitters such as glutamate. Low levels of it have been linked to depression, anxiety, and OCD. Sound familiar? So here I put some tasty plant foods into Chronometer. 1 cup of lentils, 2 cups of chopped broccoli, 1 tablespoon of nutritional yeast, 1 ounce walnuts, 2 cups of chopped kale, 1 banana, and 1 avocado. All the B vitamins at only 900 calories, by the way. Of course, it'd be even easier to get your day's worth in like a full day's food, 2,000 calories plus, depending on how many you need. Or you could just take a multivitamin every other day. It's really not that hard. Similarly, meager levels of zinc and iron, two nutrients far more prevalent in meats than veggies, may manifest as moodiness or worse. So I added in another cup of lentils and 4 ounces of tofu, only 1,300 calories now, and yet 22 milligrams of iron. Again, it'd be even easier if you're eating like a full day's worth of food, 2,000 calories plus, depending on how much you need, or take a multivitamin every other day. I'm not trying to be flippant. I do understand that nutritional deficiencies are a thing on vegan and vegetarian and all diets, really. As I've talked about a lot in other videos, like my recent whole food plant-based is not enough video. But to imply, as this author does, that you can only get these nutrients from meat or other animal products is pretty ridiculous. They are found in plants, and with just a little bit of planning, supplementation, if that's needed as well, it's really pretty easy to make sure you are meeting your needs for iron and zinc and B vitamins on a vegan or a vegetarian diet. Then there's tryptophan, an essential amino acid found almost exclusively in poultry. Tryptophan? Lysine would make sense, as I talked about in this video, but tryptophan? Even a diet of just Oreos, 2,000 calories of Oreos, will get you enough tryptophan. It's not an issue for vegans or vegetarians. Some vegetarians inadvertently dig themselves in deeper by filling up on white bread, rice and pasta, sugar-laden cereals, and cookies. True, and this is not a good thing, but it certainly isn't an issue only for vegetarians or vegans. Most Americans eat way too many refined carbs. But quitting meat shouldn't be done cold turkey. Consult a nutritionist or doctor beforehand, especially if you are susceptible to mood disorders or have a family history of them. Then cut down gradually. Because meat is a drug, apparently? I mean, it probably is a good idea for many people to reduce their consumption gradually because it makes it easier to do it that way, easier to stick to. But this isn't because giving up meat right away somehow puts your health at risk. It's ridiculous. As you go, keep tabs on how you feel physically and mentally. Everyone responds to going vegetarian differently. Some feel amazing right away, some may feel the same, and some realize they're better off with a little bit of animal protein in their diets after all. Why? Why would someone need a little bit of animal protein in their diet? Again, we need nutrients, and all of the nutrients that we need can be found in plants, with a couple of exceptions like B12 and D, which we can get via supplementation. But let's say there are some people who need animal protein in their diets. Does this automatically mean cow, pig, chicken, fish, and other clearly sentient creatures? Why not bivalves like oysters instead? Not only are they very likely not sentient, they're also healthier and actually environmentally friendly compared to other meats. Aside from insects, but that's another story. Isabel Smith, 27, was one of the latter. Just like Drew Ramsey's patient, she was active and energetic and thought a vegetarian diet was the perfect complement to her health-conscious lifestyle. But after a few weeks sans meat, she found herself uncharacteristically weepy. I was tired and frustrated and got upset more easily, especially over things that wouldn't normally bother me. I would find myself sad for no reason. Shortly after she started eating meat again, she noticed an uptick in her mood. But was returning to meat the only way to solve this problem? Doubtful, seeing as there's nothing special about meat. Again, it's nutrients that matter, and meat does not have a monopoly on nutrients, as I've already shown. And again, oysters are an option, and insects too. The twist? Smith is a registered dietitian. The Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics has made their position on vegan and vegetarian diets quite clear. It is the position of the American Dietetic Association that appropriately planned vegetarian diets, including total vegetarian or vegan diets, are healthful, nutritionally adequate, and may provide health benefits in the prevention and treatment of certain diseases. But I guess instead we should listen to Isabel Smith, who specializes in oh-so-healthy juice cleanses and improving detoxification. One quack voice going against the mainstream should not be enough to undermine the entire profession's consensus that well-planned vegan and vegetarian diets are healthy. The moral of the story is that many supposed experts on nutrition don't know what the fuck they're doing when it comes to advising vegetarian and vegan patients, and it seems they don't really care to learn. They have no qualms about participating in animal cruelty with their dietary choices or looking for ways to justify that cruelty. So why should they care if you go back to eating meat? A really good recent example of this is that article from that nutritionist on her concerns about vegan diets. I did a video on that. Check it out. It's up to us to make sure we are eating adequately, not only for ourselves, for our health, but for the animals. Fortunately, it is easier than ever to do this with all of the choices we have, with all of the delicious, healthy foods that we have, but also all of the resources that we have. Wonderful vegan experts, registered dietitians Jenny Messina and Jack Norris, and the awesome resources that they provide. It makes our lives as vegans so much easier. So in conclusion, vegetarian diets may be correlated with certain mental health disorders, and we don't know why. It could be because some vegetarians are not eating enough B vitamins or iron or other nutrients, in which case they should pay closer attention to their diets. We all should, since just being vegetarian or vegan is not enough for good health. Or it could just be that some people with certain mental health disorders are more likely to be vegetarian. And that's it. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. It's another one of those, like that nutritionist article one that I did the video on and the egg one. Just really ridiculous, kind of not a whole lot of good information there, unfortunately, and kind of propagating a lot of myths, especially, someone corrected me on that recently. Especially the myth that certain nutrients can only be had through meat and other animal products. The author doesn't actually explicitly say that, but she pretty intensely implies it, which is just silliness. It's nutrients that we need, not meat or not certain plant foods even. It's just the nutrients that are important. And you know what meat doesn't have? It doesn't have fiber. You know what it does have? Cholesterol, saturated fat, trans fat, and cruelty. Thank you so much for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you want to subscribe. And if you want to support me, you can do so at patreon.com/unnaturalvegan, or you can do so right here on YouTube on my channel page, right on the right-hand side. So that is pretty cool. Thanks again, and I will have a new video very soon.